The Notcast, life, love and misery and deep shit.
Do you ever wonder, what the fuck am I doing here? Is this it? Maybe you've got the car, career, house, family and friends, everything that should make you happy. But still, there's this tenacious sense of being trapped, stuck, lost, or just a bit bloody empty. Welcome to the Notcast, where two therapist coaches, aka theracoaches, lay bare their psycho-spiritual journey of struggle, strife, and realization in their soul search for the keys to a happier, more fulfilling life.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to episode 23 of the Notcast, Confidence. 5 top tips to creating brass bollocks confidence.
Oosh.
Yeah, it needs a little something at the end, doesn't it?
Like a confident fuck you.
Well, yeah, okay. that. Oh, love it, love it, love it. Okay, so confidence.
Confidence.
We're
just going to keep saying confidence to each other.
Yeah.
Until the other one says something else.
And by the end of it, we'll be just like so confident. This is how you do it, people. No.
This is the affirmations episode.
Oh, love that voice. Love that voice. Okay, so confidence. Yeah. What came up for you?
For me, well, should we start with my my googly etymology journey?
Yeah, other search engines are available.
Yeah, but they all just reference the same bloody shit that Google's got on it.
Yeah. Still.
Back in my day.
It's going to be one of those episodes.
Yeah. I was going to actually, I remember there was a time before Google when actually you had to use different search engines because they gave you different results. And then Google came along with a better algorithm, I guess. And so everybody stopped using the others.
Yeah. Yahoo.
Anyway, minor pontificate tangent. So confidence. So the first few definitions that came up are the feeling or belief that one can have faith in or rely on something or someone. The state of feeling certain about the truth of something, and a feeling of self-assurance arising from an appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities. So there's stuff there about belief, faith, relying on, and truth. So I was like, okay. Oh, and also the etymology of confidence is have full trust.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, well, let's go to trust then. And I know we kind of covered this in the last episode, but to kind of recap. So trust, firm belief in the reliability, truth, or ability of someone or something. Acceptance of the truth of a statement without evidence or investigation. So again, there's some themes there about belief, about relying on stuff, truth. Mm-hmm. And the interesting bit for me about the accepting without investigation, without evidence.
Yeah.
So the etymology for trust is strong. So a couple of other bits I looked at. Truth. So the etymology for truth is faithfulness, constancy. Mm-hmm. And the definition for that is a fact or belief accepted as true. And certain, again, the etymology is about settled and sure. And that's able to be firmly relied on to happen or be the case.
Okay.
So again, there's these themes about certainty, about firmness, about faith, basically. There's this like, predictive nature almost.
Yeah.
And to me, when I summed it up, it's trust in something, belief, faith, and often it is based on experience.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, absolutely.
When I summed it up, like in my mind, it's like the key word is trust, or it's this faith, I guess, in something, like something happening, in some ability, in some, I don't know. It's just all the same words, but it's a firmness, it's a certainty, right?
Yeah.
And I suppose the way I like to think of it is, I know I can.
I like that.
Yeah, That's the
Really
phrase
like
I
that.
have, this sense of like, I know I can, or I know it will, I know it possible. It's this sense of knowingness. And like when I think about what I used to think confidence was, I used to think confidence was this thing, this like, this thing to obtain, you know, the magic pill type thing. Like I need confidence. And now I don't see it like that anymore. I see it more as like more as a process, more as a kind of a state of being, a mindset. And I also think it's really quite contextual. I think that when we think about confidence, a lot of the time we think of it in terms of this, like, I'm confident or I'm not. There's confidence or there's not.
Absolutely.
And I think it can depend on the context.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree. Tick, tick, tick.
What came up for you when you were looking at it?
Okay, so I had quite an interesting journey with this one because I think a lack of confidence is where my journey began with it. And I pretty much throughout most of my existence so far thought I was not confident. And it was like you mentioned, right? Like this thing that I just didn't have, that other people have, that I don't have. But when I reflected on it, I realized that actually confidence is not even a thing for me. It's not something I focus on. It's not something I think about. And for me, it was pretty much swapping out the word confidence for trust and faith. Trust in myself, which I never had, and faith in myself. And for me, when I'm not confident, I'm in fear. And that became the basis of the reflection for me, because it really highlighted that as I had started to trust myself, confidence pretty much became a non-thing. It was just like, no, I trust that I've got this. Like you said, I can. I know I can. So there's been so much less of a focus on my confidence and, you know, having or not having confidence. But I also looked at context, as you mentioned as well, because I guess there was confidence in myself, which is the biggest thing, like in working context or public speaking context, life, relationships, in relation to my body. So there's been confidence in lots of different areas. Yeah, but I feel like not thinking about it in that way anymore is a lot easier for me, because rather than going, oh my God, I just don't have the confidence, I'm able to go, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid is going to happen? And then I can work through it as a process.
I love that question.
Yeah.
I love that question. I love the phrase trust in yourself, trust in myself. It's something I find myself using quite a lot now, because I think for me, it really describes the process.
Yeah.
It's like, if there's this thing that I want to do or have to do, if I feel scared or, you know, inverted commas, unconfident about it, another way of looking at it is that I'm not trusting myself to handle it. I'm not trusting myself to work it out.
Yes.
And I think that shows up in this way of like, oh, I'm basically going to stay where I am and I'm going to sit in my overthinking anxiety cloud and somehow come up with the solution without doing anything, without moving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And understandably, because sometimes from that space, like moving in any of the directions that look possible seem impossible, or seem, again, like they seem like they're going to cause me harm. But again, what for me that comes down to is still that lack of trust that I can move and work it out. Yeah,
absolutely. Completely. I get that. Yeah. I'm going to wait until I do my first point.
Well, we could just hang out here for a bit before you do your first point, I suppose.
Nah, I'm going to share my first point. I'm going to have brass bollocks confidence and say that.
That's more like it.
That's the one. Because number one is, am I okay with fucking it up?
Am I okay with fucking it up? I love that. Tell me more.
Yeah. So that was the thing. What it came down to for me in life was it wasn't okay to mess it up. And that's when I thought I didn't have confidence in stuff. It was like not being okay with fucking stuff up. And that was where a lot of my childhood stuff around confidence kind of came from, because it wasn't okay to get things wrong. It wasn't okay to make mistakes. It was something that was quite heavily frowned upon. It's like, no, you have to get it right. Like, for example, I learned my timetables by, when my mom taught me, she would sit with a stick And if I got one wrong, I'd get a rap on my knuckles with a stick, or she'd be chasing me around the dining table. So that just kind of embedded the thing around, it's not okay to get stuff wrong.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Otherwise you get punished.
Yeah.
Right. So that really fed into the whole confidence thing. Whereas now, through the process and continuous reflection, because I will own that it's difficult for me to get stuff wrong even now. My first point is always that child reaction to it. But I have to work around, and work with, why is it not okay to fuck something up? Like, what is the story I have around making a mistake or fucking something up? So that's my starting point. Rather than, why can't I do this because I'm not confident? It's kind of like, am I okay with just fucking it up if it all goes wrong? And it's like, yeah, I actually am. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That doesn't affect my okayness because I trust myself.
Yeah. I love that. And well, actually, it was similar to my first point. Well, actually, my second point, because you're bloody out of order now.
As always.
Yeah, my first one was, or is now, failure and mistakes are a perspective, not truth.
Yes.
Because very much to what you spoke to, like for a long time, I saw failure and getting things wrong as just, well, the worst thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about it, actually, it was because, well, it's because of the belief I had about that. I because of what getting stuff wrong meant and what I was afraid would happen. So, for example, when I was big into wanting to be a musician and learning and wanting to perform, I was absolutely terrified of fucking things up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really wanted to be able to perform in front of people, but I just had this terror of doing it. And really, it was because I was afraid of looking stupid. I was afraid of the embarrassment. I was afraid of the judgment and the criticism and all of that stuff. But interestingly for me, like I managed to believe my own bullshit about that for a long time until I went to music college. And I remember, like, very early on in the course, we're talking like week 1, they sat us down and they had this thing called the live performance workshop, basically, where they said, right, so each week we're gonna learn a song and then you're gonna perform it. It's like, what? It's like, oh yeah, and you've got to learn 2 guitar parts for every song each week.
Whoa.
And I was like, what? Like, I've never learned a song in less than like 6 months, and you're going to give me a week to learn it. What the fuck? And then you're going to expect me to play it in front of people. Fucking hell. Nearly had a meltdown. Basic, well, I did. I think I had a week of like what I now can see of like close to panic attacks, because I was so terrified of that. But what was interesting was that I was in this position where it's like, okay, I've just saved up for this course. I've paid it. I've worked it out with work that I can go part-time and all of that. So my options are I either get on with it or I fuck it all off. It's like, well, didn't really seem like an option to fuck it all off. So I had to do it. And I really surprised myself.
Yeah.
I really surprised myself with doing that because I was able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and what was interesting was I would still get up on stage terrified and I'd play and thinking, oh God, that was terrible. And I didn't do this well. And then I'd have people going, that was really good.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Or I actually had one guy come to me and say, I'd love to come and watch you practice because you get up every week and you nail it. And I was like, I was in my head, I'm like, has he got shit in his ears? Like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? But even that, like, it started to kind of mess with my idea about what failure is and how I was performing.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, yeah, fast forward a number of years, I do see failure a lot more as a kind of part of the learning process, kind of like you spoke to. It's like, it's not always comfortable at all. None of us like to feel that, oh fuck. But it's because now it's not something I'm so terrified of. It's a lot easier to learn, to make progress, I guess.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that story. Yeah. I love that you just did that as well. And I guess sometimes
I felt like I had no choice.
Right, but sometimes that's the thing. Sometimes I feel like when you don't have a choice, like that's the moment where you really get to see, right, through the illusion or the bullshit, because it's like, You might resist it in that going, I don't want to do it. I have to. But once you've done it, at least you can look back and go, I did it.
Yeah. It's like the lesser of two dragons.
Yeah. I think it's always easier for me when somebody goes, no, you have to do it. I'm like, well, I have to. Somehow it adds something to it for me where it's like, well, I had to, so I just did it. So.
Well, you make a good point, and I do find I do think the best growth comes from choice where it's a volition, but I do also find it's sometimes the breakthrough only comes when we're put between that rock and a hard place, so we have to, it's like we'll pick one.
Yeah, exactly. The lesser of two evils. Yes. Yes. Okay, so my next one. Oh, where am I going to go with this one? Let's see. Well, I guess it makes sense to go with practice, because that kind of speaks to yours. Because it is that, right? It's just something that I had to do to be able to prove that I could do it. So I guess there was a lot of stuff. So I was the kid that used to sit at the back of the classroom, head down, just going, please, please, please don't ask me to speak in front of people. Please, please, please don't do that. Because I had such a fear of even speaking in front of people. And obviously now we do this and I run groups and all this kind of stuff. But I remember the battle within myself when I first got to that point. Actually, lots of things in my life where I've really wanted to do something or connect with people or, go out and ask a question to someone. And the only way I've truly learnt that I can do stuff is by doing it and proving it to myself. So I guess it's about practice, feeling that way and being okay with that feeling. Because I get this shake inside me, right? The tremble of fear. However, now I kind of see it as a tremble of courage.
Yeah, the courage shakes.
The courage shakes, yeah. So it's like I am on the edge of that raft and I get to choose. Do I jump in or not jump in? And I don't judge myself either way. And I guess that's another big thing. I don't judge myself for it. But yeah, I just had to practice and throw myself in there and go, whatever it is, I trust that I'll be okay.
Yeah, I love that. And now we've gone completely out of my order.
Oh dear. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, but one of my points was practice.
Yeah.
Exactly what you were talking to. I mean, two things come to mind for that for me. One was, when I was first setting up as a therapist, I'd set everything up, I'd set my website up and the inquiries started coming in. But every time an inquiry came in, I was just hit with this terror. And I'm like, oh God, because it was like, oh, what if I fuck it up and how do I respond and blah, blah, blah. But again, it was almost like that rock and a hard place because part of me was like, I just want to put my head under the duvet and not reply.
Yeah.
But it was like, that's going to make it really difficult to grow a business if I do that. So I, in a way, I had to reply. But what happened over time was I got more comfortable with replying. I got better at replying.
Yeah.
And it meant, over time when they responded, because sometimes I wouldn't get a response. So I'd be like, oh my God, is that me? And have I fucked that up? Have I messed something up? And arguably sometimes maybe I did, but over time it was easier to realize, what, some people actually just don't reply because maybe they had the courage to email me, but when they get the response and it's all very real, it's like, oh shit. Yeah. Also, maybe the spam filters ate some of them, who knows? But the point is it changed. Yeah. Same as even getting clients to sit in front of me. When they turn up, sometimes I'd be like, oh shit, new client or new consultation. Oh my God. But just practicing over time, my brain got used to, oh, you know what to do. Yeah. You know what to do. And there was a really interesting interim period actually where I'd be freaking out in my head still sometimes before a new client or before a consultation, say. But then as soon as I'd open the door, it's like, bang, I'd suddenly flip into just being present with them and connected.
Yeah.
And then it'd be almost like they'd leave and I'd be like, oh, what was I worried about?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had that feeling so many times. I can even tell you. I get that especially when we started the Notcast, it was like that. It was, I would get that feeling and then it would just be like, oh, that was okay. It's not as bad.
Well, I'm sure you remember when I was doing the prep initially, it was like, oh my God, we've got an episode and I've got to prep and how do I do this? And oh my God, 10 minutes before, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yes. Yes, I remember.
Well, yeah. Whereas now it's more like, okay, sometimes and it's still a bit like, oh, I'm not sure about this, and maybe I realize I've not quite left enough time for prep, but I don't freak out like I used to. But that's because there's part of me that's just like, I know how this works. I know how to do it, and I now trust myself more to be like, even if my spreadsheet's not properly put together, or I can't quite read my writing, it's like, we'll work it out.
Yeah, right. I guess that comes back to the trust in trusting, because that's, well, for me, the approach to this has been that it's just like, let go.
Yeah, let go
and trust.
But I do think, like, it's in the definitions I was looking at where it's like trust without evidence. I do find, like, sometimes I think that can be a thing, but I do think blind faith doesn't always work, and I think that can bite us in the arse. I do think there is a piece about experience, like we were talking about the Notcast initially. Okay, freaking out. You could say, well, we should have just chilled out in the first place. It's like, it's probably easier said than done. It's a lot easier to chill out now.
Yeah.
Now we've been doing it for a bit, and now I know I can work it out because I've actually got experience of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Which brings me on to my next point.
Hey.
So thank you very much.
More than welcome. What's your next one?
Get curious about the feelings and sit with them.
Get curious about the feelings and sit with them. Tell me more.
Yeah. Okay. So this was, well, I know we've spoken to this like lots of times, but it is such a big thing for me. The moment that I realized that the thing I was afraid of was a feeling and nothing else, it was life-changing for me. It was really getting to the point where I understood where it's like, I'm afraid to feel the fear. I'm afraid of the humiliation. I'm afraid of, non-acceptance. I'm afraid of judgment, and they're all feelings. They're my feelings, and they're okay. So rather than trying to suppress them and battle through it, the difference is that I acknowledge them, I sit with them, I allow the feelings. And in some ways I love those feelings. It's like, okay, they're informing me of what's going on, but I don't have to take it as truth, because it's not truth. It's a feeling. Yeah. So for me, it's really about take the time to stop and really kind of inquire about those feelings, because ultimately it's a feeling that creates that, or it's the fear of a feeling, something we don't want to feel. It's like, get okay with that. Just be okay and sit with those feelings a little bit and feel into them rather than resisting them or suppressing them or avoiding them and then just going, oh my God, I'm not confident, I'm not going to do it. Like, I had an experience when I was a kid. When I was at school, I auditioned to be in, I think it was The Wizard of Oz. And I had a Latin teacher at school that was an utter prick.
Right.
Okay. So I did my audition and he was really cruel to me afterwards. And for so many years, I used that story as a reason to not do shit, like put myself out there.
Really?
Yeah. And it was like those feelings that I felt, that humiliation, because it was in front of the whole classroom. I really held on to that like something that I shouldn't feel.
Yeah.
But what I really needed to do was sit in it and feel it. And then it kind of dissolved. And it was like, that's an old story. It's not necessarily going to happen again. Yeah. The only way to know is to go do it. So yeah, absolutely. Sit in the feelings.
I love that. And that does kind of lead on to one of my points. So one of mine is stop believing you're right about I can't.
Yes.
And this for me this is the way I think about this kind of thing. Like, for me, I want to say after the level of fit, you could say before, let's say before the level of feelings, is where all the belief stuff is. It's the story. Yeah. Right. And the way I like to think of it, at least one perspective, is that the beliefs and stories we have almost try and protect us from those feelings. So yeah, I do think the answer is face the feelings and see that, in a way, I don't want not to minimize it, but they're just feelings. Like, see that you can deal with them, have a different perspective on them. But for me, you often got to get past the story first. That's well weaved to keep me away from it. And well, like I had this about performing, right? That's what I talked about before. But I remember having it about even after I've been to college, right? I had it about performing at open mics. So I wanted to start playing open mics and playing songs that I'd written. But again, this kind of belief I had was quite pervasive. Even though I'd proved it at college, it was like, I can't play my songs well enough live yet.
Yeah.
Now, when thinking about it, like the belief I had, I was trying to find a way. How do I put this? Like looking back on it, I was hoping that one day I would suddenly realize, oh, do you know what? I'm now good enough to play live when I've only been playing in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Which made sense in my head at the time, but it's like actually playing live is completely different. It's a completely different environment.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, then what I was looking for when I think about it was I was looking for that feeling of now I feel confident enough. Suddenly I finished playing in my bedroom and I now feel confident enough to go out and play the open mic and feel really good.
Love it.
But of course, every time I thought about playing the open mic, I got scared and I had these fears of fucking it up and blah, blah, blah. Well, where I got a kind of insight into that was, I think I was coming home. I had a singing teacher in London and I was coming home on the train and my friend texted me and said, come down to the open mic. And my initial reaction was, oh, fuck no. And the story came up.
Yeah.
But I caught it and I was like, I'm not going to be any better at singing and singing in tune and all that stuff than I am right after a singing lesson.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think I just saw through my bullshit enough to be like, well, got to give it a go then, haven't I?
Love that.
And the thing was, I then turned up and I played and I was so scared. My hands were numb and then I did mess it up a bit and my voice quivered and it was uncomfortable. But what was interesting is it wasn't how I thought it would be. And I got through it. And then, of course, I had the experience of going there and being what it was like. So then, a couple of weeks later, it was like, maybe I could go back.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That right there. Love that.
Yeah. So for me, it's about seeing through the kind of, it's about starting to at least question the certainty of the belief of the I can't before we can start to look at like, what am I actually avoiding in that case?
Yeah. Yeah. I had that one down as don't believe your own BS.
How censored for our podcast.
I know, right? I know. How dare I? Yeah. And very similar ones to that. Like, is it really true? Like, yeah, I feel those things are really, really important. Oh, there's a lot of overlap in ours today. It's interesting.
Synergy, innit?
Yeah. Synchronicity. My fourth point then is self-inquiry. Okay. Because everything we've spoken to is about looking at ourselves, right? And reflection. And I feel like everything in life needs some reflection. But for me, there was a massive difference to my confidence as such when it was an outside in thing versus an inside out thing. So when it was an outside in thing, I very much based it on other people's responses or reactions or wanting them to be okay with me, because that was really, really important to me. That was how I validated myself and got my self-worth. However, as I've had my journey and it's flipped to an inside out thing, because it's less about the people out there, it doesn't matter what they might think of it. And that's taken a really, really long time to get to. And it's taken a shitload of practice. And I can hardly even believe I'm saying it. But yeah, I don't give that much of a fuck anymore.
Good space to be.
It's a fabulous space to be. But yeah, because I know I can cope. Like I know that I'm doing it for me. It's not for somebody else. And if I do mess it up, then that's mine, right? To have. It doesn't matter whether other people accept that or not accept that. But I really think an inquiry around it, around the questioning, is really, really important. It's like, what am I afraid of? What does confidence really look like? When am I confident? When have I seen myself in that space so that I can then prove to myself that I can do it? But a lot of it for me was really picking it apart, which essentially is the work that I do with clients too. It's around really just picking it apart and going, okay, where are you confident? Is it always true that you're not confident? I think they're useful questions to ask. So everything for me starts with self-inquiry. So go forth and reflect.
Go forth and reflect. I love that. Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about that, I come back to, what we were just talking about. Like, I've got these stories, these beliefs, and generally they're trying to protect me from some kind of discomfort or fear, something I'm afraid to experience, something I either believe is going to play out a certain way, or I've got a fear about just not being able to handle it. And for me, the inquiry is not always the full story, but it starts to point you in the direction of, oh, hang on a minute, it's only me holding me back from this.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So my next point then, this is fourth, right? My fourth point?
Yes.
So my fourth point, don't take a leap.
Mm-hmm.
Take the next step.
Yes.
Now, like, I say this because I find a lot of the time, like, there's that common wisdom, like, just go, just do it, just jump, take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And like, more often than not, I don't think that's helpful. Like, I think it's bollocks, actually. Well, because like, it can look like a leap of faith to someone else, but in my experience, there's often a bunch of little steps before then.
Yes.
Like, if I try and take that leap, sometimes it's too big. Like, I have no map for between here and there. And so there's just this massive gaping chasm. So my mind just gets to fill it with fear and discomfort and horror stories. And basically, I'm much better if I just stay where I am and don't move.
Yes.
I mean, even like a little thing that comes up for me when I think about that is like, when I moved into my house, when we viewed it, it looked fine. And then when we got in it, it was like, was this the house we actually viewed? But I knew fuck all about DIY. So I got really quite, downhearted and depressed about it, because I'm like, where the fuck do I start? Because in my head, I'm like, I've got to do all this stuff. I mean, and the two things come up for me about that. Like, one was, I remember I had like a fucking rug or something covering the window for like a number of weeks, because that someone had just nailed up, just because there was no curtains.
Lovely.
But in my head, I'm like, well, where'd you get curtain poles? And like, how do you use a drill? What drill do I buy?
I love it.
I had no idea. But like, what that then did, like that, just that small part of it, I then did have to look at it and go, well, I've got to sort this problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, well, where do I start with drills? Well, let's start on the internet. Which drill do I buy?
I love it.
And of course, then I find out, like, hang on a minute, I've got to learn about drills. And there's part of me going, fuck's sake, I really don't care about drills. But there's other part of me going, well, but you want to have curtains rather than a fucking rug covering the window, don't you? It's like, well, yeah. But then what was interesting was I did some research, and then I got a drill, and then I found some YouTube videos, and then I found out where you can buy curtains and curtain poles. And before you know it, I'm like putting up curtain poles, and I'm like, I'm pretty fucking proud of my curtain poles. They're actually straight, and I quite like them.
Nice. Go you.
So yeah, like, for me, it's there's this paradox, though, I think, almost, of like, there's two things I think that are true. Sometimes it is about, you got to take action, because sometimes if we're thinking like too much about the plan, sometimes planning can be a thing where I'm looking that when I get to the end of the plan, that suddenly all the fear and discomfort disappears.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we can just get into over planning mode. But for me also, if you have no plan or no idea, no direction, or no idea what the next step is, we can just get left with this, everything looks too big and out of reach.
Yeah.
So there is almost this like needing to understand enough about it, but then also still being able to take that next step to create some new experience, some kind of progress into that unknown, that uncertainty.
Yep. I love that, because every step matters. Yes. Okay. So, point number 5. Once I've decided what it is coming at you. For me, it's really about getting to know yourself. Point number 5.
Getting to know yourself.
Yeah. Building a relationship with yourself, building a loving relationship with yourself. Because when I didn't have a relationship with myself, I wasn't comfortable within myself. And that hugely impacted my confidence and my ability to trust myself or have any faith in myself. So like when I started my therapeutic work and I had to go into schools to kind of literally sell it because I wanted to do group programs in schools, like I can see that I've got more confident in that process. Like I used to shit myself at first. It was like, you know, almost like having to go in there and it's almost like begging. I just like, you know, please, 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 please. In that sense of, you know, you're doing me a favor.
Right.
And really kind of going out of my way to fit into their framework and stuff. And I've noticed that as I've built that relationship with myself and my grounding of trust and faith has really grown, I've taken a lot more ownership of those kind of situations, and I'm a lot more able to go in and go, this is what I need. This isn't how it needs to look, because I have that trust in myself and I'm comfortable within myself and within my own skin. And when I hated being in this skin, obviously I wasn't confident. Like that doesn't make for confidence. So it's like, think about the relationship you have with yourself and how comfortable you are within yourself, because that for me makes a massive difference. And are you loving yourself where you are right now? In the inconfidence, can you love yourself in the inconfidence as such? Because if you can't, then it's going to be very, very difficult to take those steps to get you to that place of believing that you can do whatever it is that you really, really want to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're absolutely right. Like when I think about when I wasn't very confident, like in a way it was actually because I had some quite strong ideas about who I was, like who I was, what I could do, what I couldn't do. And yeah, that played out then in the position I took with something else. So yeah, if a client was coming to see me, I was almost like grateful that they were wanting to work with me.
Yeah, right.
Kind of thing. Rather than seeing, and you know, I'm not saying it should be the other way around. I'm saying like there's a difference between realizing, hang on a minute, I've got something to offer. And I didn't see it like that before. It was like, oh my God, thank you so much for like picking me.
Yes. Yes.
And I think if you have that perspective, it's difficult to then have what we would call from the outside confidence, because there's just this lack of belief, this lack of trust in our abilities and what we're bringing to a situation. So the whole relationship in whatever's going on is completely skewed. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. And I know for me, it didn't work from that place at all.
It worked in their favor, I'm sure.
Yeah, it definitely worked in their favor. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely worked in their favor. But it didn't work in mine. And for me, that those things are parallel. To trust myself, I have to have a relationship with myself. Because I don't trust I don't just trust random people. So if I don't even know myself, then how can I trust myself?
Yeah, I agree. So my fifth point then, get your courage boots on.
Yes.
So for me, I really think now like courage is a skill. And for me that like courage is like it's the magic link for confidence. Like the way I see confidence now is like we talked about, right? It's about having that faith and belief in it often comes with the experience.
Yes.
But to bridge that gap, often we need courage, and that courage is about, well, I'm scared, but how can I do it anyway?
Yeah. Yes.
And I do think that in itself is a skill. Like, you know, we talk about facing the dragon, right? And I often talk about like becoming a dragon hunter, right? Like go look for the dragons.
Yeah.
So with the last episode, right, that we haven't actually at this point I don't think we've published, but Joe sent us 2 clips, right? Have you heard the clips?
Yes, I have.
So Joe sent us those 2 clips, and one of them especially, I'm like, oh God, not that one. Like,
I knew it.
Part of his like, oh, like it's fine within the episode, but to post that as a snippet that I'm going to post everywhere.
That's the one I'm going to post.
Well, of course, as soon as I saw that though, and I had that retraction, there's this other part of my brain goes, you know, that's the clip you got to post now though, don't you? And I'm like,
Oh yeah.
but because I know now, like that's where the growth is. Like the way I see it now, I know that because I'm scared of that, and because I know that the only thing, I know the fear's not of something real as such. It's not actually going to harm me. It's just my bullshit that's holding me back. So if I actively choose to not post that, then I'm actively choosing to shy away, to not have growth. So even though it's quite triggering to be like, okay, I'm going to do it, it's like it seems like the only real viable option now.
Go, David.
But now I've definitely got to post it now because I've committed to it.
Yes.
But my point is that's become a practice. That's become a practice. That's become a skill.
Yeah. Right.
Through seeing that and through practicing doing it and seeing there's safety and growth in that. Like that's not just a story I tell myself. I've done that. I've practiced seeing those things and stepping towards it and seeing the benefit of it. So yeah, get your courage boots on. Practice courage. Practice stepping into the fear, facing the dragon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to share a little story that I wanted to share just to show like you can. Okay. So when I started working and doing the group work, obviously I had to connect with organizations and people. So I once went in for a meeting with the CEO of an organization that's an international organization. And it was the first time I'd met her. And I was sitting there and I got pins and needles in my foot.
Right.
And she went, oh, let me show you the offices and what they're like. And I've got pins and needles in my foot, right? And rather than saying it, because I wasn't inverted commas confident enough to go, give me a minute, I actually tried to get up and I fell on the floor.
Oh, wow, really?
I just fell on the floor. Yeah. Then I'm just a heap on the floor. And it's like, okay, so what do I do now? Right? I was so embarrassed, honestly. Yeah. And so I then had to explain, sorry, I got a bit of pins and needles and I, fell. However, because of the humiliation and my stories, my go-to before would have been, I can never speak to this woman again. But rather than that, I made light of it. I made a joke out of it and had a beautiful relationship with the woman and worked with that organization in partnership for a really, really long time, even though that was the first impression. But
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it was seeing through the illusion, right? It didn't, it was my okayness with it, not hers that mattered. Yeah. So yes, you can.
Reminds me of when I was playing live, like one of my biggest fears, especially playing like as a solo musician, was that I was going to fuck up in front of people. Because I had this thing where I'd go, I still do, right? I go mind blank, I lose train of thought, and it would happen in the middle of songs. Like I'd go for the second verse and completely forget all the words, or something like that. So, and I had this real terror of doing that live, because like if I do that in my bedroom, it's like fine, I can quickly scroll and look it up and remind myself where I am, but live it's like, how do I deal with that? Like I can't. But what was interesting was when I started to trust myself to go out and play live, when that happened, I had to get creative and think on my feet. And what I found is I just learned to deal with it. Like like sometimes I just forget, like, or sometimes the kind of the fuck up was small enough that nobody noticed or cared. And actually I noticed if I made a big thing of it, then people would notice. Yeah. But other times, like I managed to make light of it, make a joke. And then it was funny. And it was like, oh, cool. Well, of course, then funnily enough, because I got the experience of doing that and it not being a terrible thing, I stopped worrying about it, because it was like, oh, if I forget it, it's fine. I can handle it.
Yeah. Right. And I guess, the lesson in both of those stories is sometimes maybe not take yourself so seriously.
Or at least notice where you are and put it to the test.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Love it. Love it.
So, closing thoughts on confidence and tips to creating brass bollocks confidence.
Okay. So I just want to say, love yourself where you are right now in the first instance. And then face that dragon. And that one. Acknowledge that you're afraid and work through it. And know that you are not the fear. and you can actually handle it. And ask yourself how you can be okay with fucking it up, because that's what it takes. And how can I still love myself in that space? Because that's the only way you're really going to know.
I love that. So my closing thoughts. Confidence is about belief. It's about trust. It's not a magic pill. It's usually the result of practice and experience. And the path to confidence is courage and practice.
Love it.
So, 23 episodes, done and dusted.
Boom. You've been listening to the Notcast podcast, Life, Love, Misery and Deep Shit, with your TheraCoach hosts,
Amy Dave.
and David Bird.
Amy is a transformative spiritual and self-love coach and therapist who takes people on a powerful journey towards self-love and personal transformation. She empowers her clients to discover the truth of who they really are, their true purpose, and the truest expression of themselves, whilst enabling them to navigate life and its challenges with ease, grace, and above all, love. Create relationships that rock their world and let go of the toxic shit that holds them back. You can connect with Amy on her Facebook at facebook.com/amy.dave11. That's AMI.DAVE.11.
David is a transformative coach and hypnotherapist who guides his clients on a journey of self-exploration and transformation to smash the shit out of their mental stumbling blocks and send their emotional baggage packing, helping them to get back in the driver's seat, create a more powerful, loving connection to life, and unleash onto the world their bright, shining light of authentic give-a-fuckness. You can connect with David at his website, dbch.co.uk. That's dbch.co.uk.
The